Hey everyone, my name is Brandon, aka Smart Home Sellout, and today we're going to be going over the Apollo Pump-1. This will be an introductory video just to make sure that you familiarize yourself with all the options and then show a real life example of how to use it. All right, so let's get started. First of all, the hardware overview. So we have a USB-C port. This will allow for power. It also allows us to reflash it back to factory firmware or update it. Of course, after it's added to Home Assistant, you will also be able to update it OTA over the air just by clicking the update button. We have these two little fluid input sensor and fluid output sensor, or well, the actual sensors are here and here, but these are the ports for them. And then we also have the reset on the left and the boot button on the right. So reset actually reboots the device, and it's kind of hard to tell. It's just a little black button you push in there. And the boot button will do a couple things. So if you hold down boot when you plug the USB-C in to a computer, it will, and then let go boot, it'll be in a boot mode. And so that's useful for factory reflashing it. It basically kind of tells it, hey, we're putting you in a special mode, and then be prepared to reflash firmware. So that's one way to use it. However, the boot button is also able to just be pressed and it will run the pump function. So whenever we look inside later, whether it's inside of Home Assistant or directly from the device page, we will be able to click a button called Run Pump, and it'll run for the specified amount of time. I believe the default is 10 seconds. So I put in, for example, on this one, 5 seconds. So if I click this, it will run for 5 seconds and then stop. I don't need to physically interact with it. However, you do have that option. So that's nice. And then, of course, we have the fluid input. Input is coming in this way, and then fluid output is coming out this direction. So again, we got USB-C, we have our boot button on the right, we have a reset button on the left. This is our fluid input sensor where we will attach it, and this is where we will attach the fluid output sensor. All right, and of course this is a diaphragm pump, so and we've tested with a whole lot of different materials. It is food safe. However, you're gonna want to likely have to take this whole thing apart to clean out the diaphragm pieces to make sure that no like food particles are still in there, right? So it is technically able to be food safe. However, the food safety is certainly up to you to adhere to those standards. All right. And at this point, let's jump into the fluid sensors. So these are actually both identical. And the way that they work here, you can tell there's some writing on here. Let me jump in. So there's some writing on this side, and then there's a flat side. They actually are, the side that has no writing on it is the side that actually is, it's a capacitive sensor. So that's what's actually like, it's coming from this direction whenever it's trying to measure if there's water there. All right, let's jump back. So what you can do here, and again, there's two of these, they're identical. I'm gonna call this one the fluid input sensor because it's the first one I'm using. And what this is designed to do, we can gently take this bottle off here, and we can slide our deal in here. Oops, sorry, I did it backwards. So come through this way. And now, as a reminder, the writing side, we're going to be facing towards the wall, right? So put the writing side, and I'm going to give myself some slack here. Put the writing side in like so. And try not to force it. If you need to, gently apply a little pressure, that's fine. But you shouldn't have to like really, push super aggressively. All right, so what all these little things are is little cable holders. And so what that allows us to do is just kind of pop the cable in. Let's see here, there. And you don't have to use these. It's just a way to kind of shorten this wire if you don't need that full length. All right, and so now we can attach the bottle again. And so just to be clear, what this is doing, this is going to be able to tell, it's looking this direction at the bottle. It's going to be able to tell whenever water gets below a certain threshold. So we call this the fluid input sensor because, you know, fluid coming into the inlet of the pump. So fluid input sensor will tell you, in Home Assistant, it will show wet or dry. So, you know, wet means that it has water in it. Dry means that it's technically will have a teensy bit left, right? But it'll be telling you that it's almost at the very bottom. And then of course we need to connect this to the PUMP-1. And let me zoom in a little bit here. You can see there's a little nub here, and then there's a little notch cut out right there. And so that's gonna gently push right in there. Whoops. Easier to do when not filming. Perfect. All right. And then we have the second optional fluid output sensor. So let's jump back here. So the fluid output sensor is an identical sensor. However, this is actually meant to be installed on whatever you want to track the fluid level of, right? So maybe you want to attach this side of it to the Keurig reservoir, or maybe you want to attach it to a fish tank, something like that. So the writing will be facing outwards, and the flat with no writing will be facing, for example, if my hand is glass, that would be up against the glass of the fish tank, and it will tell you the water level, right? If it's above or below where it hits here. So again, this is using the same little 3-pin. Let's zoom in here. Same little 3-pin connector. It's a JST PH 2.0 3-pin, I believe. It is on the wiki. And if that's not full, if you can't get that fully inserted, we can pop the this lid off here. So I like to use this little tool and just kind of gently get between the case and just kind of pop the lid off, and that kind of comes off pretty gently. And so if you need to make sure that those are fully seated, you can do that. All right, when you're putting the lid back on, make sure this little nub here sits right over the USB-C port. That kind of holds it in. And snap down. Perfect. All right. At this point, I want to go over and we will, just to circle back for a second, we will show this in action here in a moment. I just want to go ahead and get through the kind of introductory setup process, if you will. All right, so you also might have optionally bought a couple of tubes from us, and they're identical in length. You can certainly buy longer tubes. We have the inner diameter and outer diameter on the wiki as well. I don't want to say the wrong numbers and be wrong, so I'm just going to say it's on our wiki, but we do have that info. All right, so again, this is our fluid input and this is our fluid output. So input here, and I'm gonna zoom in just a little for you here. All right, so it's pretty much as simple as I'm kind of holding it with this finger, and then I'm pushing on, and I'm kind of twisting. It seems to work better if you kind of twist. And next thing you know, you got a nice connection on there, and you could obviously push it and get it a little bit further in. That's totally fine, no worries there. All right, and so this will most likely be going inside of your bottle here, and you don't have to use this bottle. You could instead use some kind of a 5-gallon bucket or some other, I don't know, some other cleaning solution, whatever you end up using this for, right? All right, so, and then of course our secondary will be our fluid output coming off the side here, and twist. And now this one is ready to, fill up whatever you need to refill, right? All right, so perfect. Just want to, just want to kind of recap a little bit here. So we made sure we went over the USB-C port, what the boot button, which is the one on the right, does, what the reset on the left does, our fluid input sensor, which is this one on our right, and our fluid output sensor, which is this one on our left. We then also looked at the fluid inlet and the fluid outlet of the pump itself. And of course, we looked and saw how the fluid input sensor sits inside of the optional little bottle. Oh, and last but not least, there's a little nub here on the 3D print, and then a little nub right, or a punch out right there, so it can technically kind of sit as one device. All right, perfect. Well, thank you guys, and make sure to stick around. We are next going to go into a practical use case where we're actually seeing how to physically connect it, and then run an automation in Home Assistant and see it all kind of come together. All right, thanks again, everyone. Hey, everyone. All right, so in part 2 of the video here, there's a couple things I want to catch you up on. One, I have filled up my fluid input bottle, and I have gone and got my Keurig from the kitchen, and what I did is I put the input tube where fluid is going to be sucked in from the pump into the bottle, and I've taken the fluid output tube and pushed that over into the Keurig water reservoir there. Okay, and so just to kind of show you what we can do here, if we click the top button, which is our boot button, that also runs our pump, and my pump is set to run for 5 seconds, and you can see it ran for 5 seconds. So at the very minimum, you can always just manually run the pump for a set amount of seconds. You can also enable a run pump button from inside of Home Assistant, and then when you click that, it just keeps running and running until it hits the max safe run time. All right, so at this point, we are actually ready to affix the fluid output sensor. And as a reminder here, this is the writing side is not going to face the way that you want to track. You're going to want to use this flat side here that has no writing on it, and we're going to attach this wherever we want to know if our water level is above or below. So for example, if I put it right here and we run the water, it will, as soon as the water level hits above or below, it will change inside of Home Assistant or inside of the device page itself. It will change from dry to wet. So right now it would mark dry because the water level is below it. But once the water level raises up above wherever we put this, it will change to wet, and you can use that in automations. So for now, I'm just going to use a little bit of tape. And I'm going to tape the backside, and as a reminder, we want that backside with the writing on it. And then I'm just going to tape it, and we want to make sure it's flat so that we get a good, a good solid, like you want just whatever surface it's on. The surface itself doesn't have to be flat, but we just want to make sure that it's kind of facing forwards, right? Okay, so at this point I can make it run one more time. Water will go up. And we'll do it once more. Great. So at this point, we now are aware of how we're able to run the pump and get it to fill a reservoir. However, maybe we want to run the pump until this turns to wet. Well, there's actually a disabled entity in Home Assistant. We'll show you how to enable that in just a moment. We'll go enable that, and then we are going to run it until this output measures full. So now let me go run that. All right, so it is now running, and as soon as our fluid output sensor is set to from dry to wet, it will stop. So we should see here any second. Ta-da! Perfect. All right, so we will continue on inside of Home Assistant. I just wanted to make sure that you realized how everything kind of went together, and to make sure that you could kind of see everything in action. Perfect, so make sure to join us for part 3, where we will show how to set up an automation inside of Home Assistant, and we might jump back here and take a look at what that looks like in IRL, if you will, once we do that. All right, see you there. Bye. All right, hey everyone. So in this third part, I want to make sure that we understand how to use the PUMP-1 inside of Home Assistant. So this assumes that you've already followed the PUMP-1 getting started and have it joined to your Wi-Fi and then have it added to Home Assistant via auto discovery. Once that is done, you will be able to navigate to your settings, your integrations, your ESP Home, and then I will scroll down until I see my Apollo PUMP-1 test bench. All right, so from here we can turn our RGB light on or off. We can also click here and change the brightness or change any color. We can also change the pump run seconds. So what this does, whatever number this is, I'm going to leave mine at 5. Then if you click run pump, it will run that for 5 seconds. We also have run pump until output wet. So instead of running for a specific amount of time, this will run until the fluid output sensor is marked as wet. This is disabled by default, so whenever you see it, it will look like this. We will have to click on here, click settings, click enable, and it will show up here in 30 seconds. Okay, so we'll go ahead and jump down. Fluid input sensor, that's the one that's right below the, or in the bottle, the fluid bottle itself, and that will tell you whether or not basically you're out of water. And then we have fluid output, that will tell you whether or not the water has reached the threshold of your secondary fluid output sensor. All right, so pump control, what this will do is just literally turn the pump on or off. Um, let's see here. We also have, it just did a refresh. Let me F5 here. Yeah, so it made that entity available again since we disabled and then re-enabled it. Let's see here. We got ESP reboot. That'll reboot the device. This will tell you if there's new firmware that we released. The max safe runtime. So what this will do, let's say you set it to 60 seconds and then you run pump control, or you run this run pump or run until output wet. Basically, no matter what, it will still stop after 60 seconds unless you have pump safety override turned on. If you have pump safety override turned on, it will ignore this number. So it's best not to have that turned on. I believe that is also disabled by default, both the pump control and pump safety override. You will have to come and enable them. They will be disabled by default. Let's see here. So these are pretty self-explanatory, but this says whether or not to stop pump when the input is dry, aka there's no more water to use on the input. So that's like when the bottle's empty, right? So it's basically saying, hey, don't run, and that's good to leave on. It's saying don't run the pump whenever there is no water. And then it also says stop pump when output wet. So that's basically saying the same type of thing. Well, if the output is already full, your fish tank, your Keurig, whatever, you don't want to keep letting it run, right? So those are both good to have turned on. Again, pump control literally just runs the pump automatically. The run pump runs it for the specified time. Pump control is kind of a manual override. And again, that is disabled by default. And then we also have, online RSSI and uptime. All right, so from here, I just want to make sure that we feel comfortable making an automation. So let's say we go and we create an automation, or you can click automation and that plus button there. So we're going to create an automation, and we are going to create a new automation for a trigger. So what I'm going to trigger on is whenever let's see, let's go. Let's do a simple one first. So let's do like time and location. So like a time pattern. No, not time pattern. Let's do a let's see, time and location. Let's do it every Monday. So every Monday, we don't want time pattern in this. So I'm gonna remove this one here. They changed the GUI on me. Apologies. So it's basically saying it when the time is on Monday, or just when Monday happens, then and here's what I'm gonna do. I want to run pump until output wet. So I'm gonna choose that, and I'm gonna say button. press, and then when it wants an entity, I'm going to use that entity. So run pump until output wet. So basically that's saying every Monday run until output wet. So this might be useful for example if you're wanting to just top something off every so often. That way it will run until the output is wet, aka the water threshold is reached there. Another thing that we could do here instead of time, let's delete this. So instead of time, we could just do, if let's see here. So let's look back at this. So let's say that the fluid output is dry. Well, if the fluid output is dry, that means that technically it can get more water in it before it gets to that threshold, right? So if fluid output is dry, and again, we can click here and we can copy that entity name. So let's go the entity, when the state of an entity, and then we're going to copy paste in our fluid output. So when the fluid output changes to dry, then run until output wet, right? So it's the same thing we already did the button as before. So I'll leave the then do, or the what I call the action. This is the trigger, right? And the action, and then a condition. So this is neat because now, and we just gotta save and then give it a name. Pump one water when dry, run until wet. So it's that's basically explaining exactly what it's doing, right? The pump one will run whenever output is dry, and then will stop running when output is wet. Save. Ta-da! So, and then we could always run this right now as a test. However, because this is already set to wet, it won't actually fire. It won't do anything because it wants to know whenever it's dry, right? So, all right, cool. So at this point, you should feel a little more comfortable using your Apollo Pump 1. Please reach out to us on Discord if you have any questions or suggestions for future video ideas. If you get lost, you name it. We'd love to hear from you. All right, thanks again, and have a great day. Later, guys.